Now that it seems that Disney and Universal are in a full-fledged theme park war, which I'm all here for, one of the things people start looking at are the attendance numbers and how do they trend, what do they look like, and what does this mean, going forward to impact both of the parks. Well, we finally got the Theme Index and Museum Index reports, which are reports that talk about theme park attendance every year. It's actually out a little bit later than it normally was, but these are for the 2023 attendance numbers for the parks, and we're going to go into that and see what that means for both Disney World and Universal Studios for 2023 and going forward. So, hi, I'm Jared with Capture the Magic. And the article here we have that talks about this a little bit is Blog Mickey. And their headline here is Universal Orlando attendance plummets, Walt Disney World reclaimed Orlando ranking dominance. But we're going to take a look at this and what it means when you compare it to the 2019 numbers. It paints a little bit of a different picture. But they say in the ongoing Central Florida theme park wars, Walt Disney World has reclaimed some positioning that it surrendered to Universal Orlando in recent years. Earlier today, the 2023 T report came out, and the attendance report is the industry standard in estimating attendance at the top theme parks and museums worldwide. While the theme parks do not release attendance numbers publicly, the T index is widely accepted within the industry as having accurate estimates. So for Disney specifically, in 2023, Magic Kingdom saw a bump up of almost 3.5% up to 17.7 million. So the big draw here was Tron Light Cycle Run. Epcot saw an increase of almost 20% at 12 million. And I think the reason for that one probably would be, Guardians of the Galaxy. That's a very popular ride. You did have the Moana walkthrough, splash pad area, but I think most of it would be the fact that you've got Guardians of the Galaxy, and they have the food festivals and everything like that. Hollywood Studios saw a decrease in 5% attendance at 10.3 million. Disney Hollywood Studios forfeited the number 2 spot at Walt Disney World to Epcot. A lot of the projects for Disney's Hollywood Studios have wrapped up, and while the park reopened Fantasmic late in 2022, it doesn't seem to have a palpable effect on attendance. I think this is a great indicator that Galaxy's Edge is just not a draw. I think it goes into a bigger effect of, I think Star Wars as a whole is a pretty down, I think it's safe to put it, franchise. And Galaxy's Edge, in my opinion, is not a Star Wars land. I think if you would have thought of a Star Wars land before Galaxy's Edge, you would envision something completely different. To me, it's like you're walking through a desert town. It just doesn't scream Star Wars. It's only the sequel trilogy. It has a lot of issues, and I think for a lot of people, it's not a draw. I just think as a land has gone, it has been a flop, in my opinion. And I think the numbers here show it, because you should still see an increase here. It's still a relatively new land. Galaxy's Edge and Toy Story Land, it should still have a positive impact on the attendance, and it is going the other way. And I think that's an indicator there of that for sure, which is probably why Disney announced Monsters Inc. Land coming to Hollywood Studios, soon, because they know they need more things to bolster that park. And then Animal Kingdom lost almost 3% at 8.8 million. And really, I mean, Animal Kingdom has always sort of been a half-day park. It doesn't have the most things to do, which is why they're adding all those things that they announced at D23 over to Animal Kingdom. So I think that's the reason for that. Now, if we look at Universal in 2023, they saw, Islands of Adventure saw 10 million guests. And Universal Studios saw 9.75 million. So Universal Orlando saw attendance, they say, plummet, roughly 1 million visitors at each of its 2 theme parks. Both of Universal Orlando's theme parks saw a decrease in attendance. Average is 9.3 down versus 2022. They said not good. That said, the Florida market experienced some rough patches throughout the year, with the year-over-year statewide figures showing a 0.6% increase at theme parks in the state. Epcot's attendance jumped, like we talked about. That was the biggest jump in North America for the year. And then Universal and Disney have both reported a downturn in attendance at the theme parks in 2024 thus far, and is likely continue, they say, early into 2025. But the big question mark in 2025 and beyond is Universal's Epic Universe. The new theme park is slated to open next summer. It'll probably open before then. And Magic Kingdom has announced a slate of plans, but won't open for many years. Analysts have predicted a 1 million visitor decline for Walt Disney World and Epic Universe opens. But what will attendance look like at Universal Orlando's existing theme parks? It's going to be a higher. It will increase. I think that's pretty safe to say. I don't know why that's a question mark here. Will Epic Universe cannibalize attendance, or will it draw in enough of a crowd to act as a rising tide for lift-off boats? So before we get into that, what is interesting about the attendance numbers is if you look at them compared to 2019. So 2019 was a peak time for theme parks before COVID lockdowns, all that stuff like that. So if you look at since 2019 to now, Magic Kingdom is down 15%. It's never recovered its attendance that it had from 2019. Epcot is still down 4%. Hollywood Studios down 10%, and Animal Kingdom down 37% compared to 2019. So all of the Disney parks and Universals as well, to be fair, have not recovered their attendance since 2019. And when you look at Universal Studios, Islands of Adventure down 4%, and then studio side is down 11%. So none of the theme parks have recovered their pre-COVID, attendance numbers. But if you look at Islands of Adventure, I mean, I would say within 5%, you're basically staying pretty steady. So Epcot and Islands of Adventure have stayed fairly steady there. Obviously, Universal Studios Florida down over 10%. But if you look at everything else at Disney, Magic Kingdom down 15, Hollywood Studios down 10, Animal Kingdom down 37. Disney had the biggest drops since 2019. Now, they are making money because now they're charging for Fast Pass and other things that used to be free. But if you look at those numbers, it does paint a little bit of a different picture, than just looking at the year over year numbers, especially when you look at 2019. And this is the one that I think is really interesting. So, like we talked about, Magic Kingdom being number one, Disneyland was number two, Universal Studios Japan was number three. They had a 29% increase from last year, as well as Tokyo Disney. They saw a 25.8% increase. Now, the biggest reason you're seeing these big jumps in Japan is they were one of the slowest countries to basically open back up after COVID. So, really, in 2023, that was the first year they were really back open where people are traveling. And Super Nintendo World opened during the pandemic after 2020. So this is the first full year that really people were going and wanting to check out Super Nintendo World. And you can see a 29% increase in their attendance because of it. And, some of that obviously is pent up demand traveling wise, but it does give you an indication. I mean, it beat Tokyo Disneyland, which is regarded as the best Disney theme park in the world by many people. So the fact that Universal beat out Disney over in Japan is a pretty big indicator right there. And I think a lot of it does show how popular Super Nintendo World is. And this is before even their Donkey Kong expansion area is open. So now you can't take these numbers and directly correlate them to, over in Orlando with Epic Universe. But what you can take away is that is one land that is part of a brand new theme park. And so when you're talking about what impact it could have, because this is the biggest question that people have about Epic Universe, how many people are going to be coming in? Again, if you look at when the Wizarding World opened up, they saw a 35% increase in their attendance and were able to sustain it. So this number here is not far off a 35% increase. And again, these are individual lands and not a brand new theme park. Now, one thing to note as well when it comes to Universal, from their earnings call this past quarter, they said theme park revenue dropped nearly 11%. This is for 2024. To 1.98 billion. Said last quarter the theme park segment began its cool down from the hotspot COVID lockdown attendance surge in 2023. More recently, competition from cruises and international tourism, particularly due to the strength of the U.S. dollar, has put pressure on U.S. theme parks. Comcast acknowledged making fewer investments in new Florida attractions ahead of the opening of the new park, Epic Universe, in 2025, adding that's played a role in declining attendance. Comcast executives said Tuesday they remained bullish on the future of the theme park's business. While the park's results are below our original expectations for the year, we still view parks as a terrific long-term growth business for us, Kavanaugh said. So basically, they're admitting to the fact that all of their basic, their resources, their time, their efforts are going into Epic Universe, and they didn't invest as much into the existing parks. Now, they did add things. They added Minion Land, they added a DreamWorks Land for the kids, but those are rethemed of existing lands that, I mean, you can tell that they didn't put the most money into them. They're very family friendly, and they're fine for what they are, but they're not these massive lands that are meant to bring in a lot of people like Epic Universe is. And, Universal has said this before, so has Disney, that, theme park attendance is relatively based on new attractions. And so since Universal, so they didn't have a lot of stuff going in, all their effort and energy going to Epic Universe. So them slowing down like they have isn't a huge shock for that reason. Now, again, this will be really interesting once Epic Universe opens, and what does it look like at that point? And I think one of the things you could see, even in perhaps the 2023 numbers, is, let's say if you were planning a big trip, and you knew Epic Universe was coming, how many people just put off trips until that is done? I think that could be something that even back in 2023 that starts having a conversation, because Universal had said for a long time, Epic Universe opening in the summer of 2025. So again, if you're one of these families that are planning, you go to, say, theme parks or Orlando once every few years, maybe you just decide to go somewhere else for that year and then do your Universal Orlando, Disney World trip in 2025 once Epic Universe is open. So I've always said in the short term, you would see Universal potentially take a hit because of Epic Universe being, looming out there, because a lot of people want to go. So they'll put off on trips. Universal has been adding things to their parks, and they've made, obviously, the Wizarding Worlds have made a huge impact in their parks. Obviously here the numbers don't lie, but again, painting the different picture, none of them have recovered since 2019 for sure. But I think it'll be interesting once Epic Universe opens. How do these numbers look, and how much of a hit does Disney take in terms of people deciding to go to Universal or Epic Universe? And like they said too, on what level, how much does it affect Universal's existing parks? I would assume they're all going to see a bump, especially given the fact that Universal has said that to be able to go to Epic Universe, at least at the beginning, some people, you may have to buy a ticket package that includes one day there, and you have to go to the other parks as well. So I imagine they're going to see a bump nonetheless. I think Disney is also anticipating there being a bump in the attendance numbers from Epic Universe. I think a lot of people in the Orlando area are expecting as much. I don't necessarily think that they're going to see as much as they may think they will if you compare it, like, say, back in 2010, 2014, when Wizarding World and all those aspects opened, because Disney did see a bump from those. But now Universal is trying to get people to choose between Disney and Universal to book a 3, 4, 5 day trip to Universal, versus where before Universal Studios has always been a 2, maybe a 3 day trip, but you could get most things done within 2 days. And a lot of people just added it on to their Disney World vacation. You could see the inverse here, where people are going to Universal and they add on like a day at, let's say, Magic Kingdom, and then a day at Epcot or something like that. So I'm curious as how that plays out once it is open, because the assumption would be Epic Universe is going to at least break into that top 5 numbers when it comes to the T report. And I think Disney's worst case scenario is Epic Universe breaks not only into that top 5, but let's say they move Magic Kingdom off that #1 spot. That's going to be a time when Disney, that's probably Disney's worst case scenario, is to see them lose that #1 spot as the #1 theme park in the world. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I think undoubtedly you're going to see Epic Universe get more than Animal Kingdom. I'm sure Epic Universe is going to get more than the existing Universal parks. And Islands of Adventure was already a top 5 theme park, and I'm going to assume it's going to probably have more than Hollywood Studios. Then the conversation comes into Epcot and Magic Kingdom. Let's say Epic Universe, comes in #2 behind Magic Kingdom. I still think that's a bad spot Disney doesn't want to see, because clearly people would be choosing to go to Universal Epic Universe over their parks. And even if Disney were to retain the #1 theme park spot, how much do they lose to Epic Universe, where, this year they're at 17, and let's say for 2025, they're at 15 million, and Epic Universe is maybe right there underneath them at 12, 13. Like, I'm just throwing numbers out here, obviously hypotheticals, but there's areas in which Disney does not want. And what I've been saying for a while is, let's say Epic Universe busts into that top 5 and does have this major impact, much more than Disney anticipates, and it hurts Disney. They have nothing to combat this until these projects that they've announced are done. And you're looking at those 3 to 5 years as your timeline, if not longer, on a lot of these projects. So they don't really have anything that they can combat this with if their opening is that big. And I suppose if you're Disney, you're betting on the fact that it's not going to be that much of an impact, and they're going to see just as much of a rise. I think it's a pretty big gamble on their part. I think it's pretty reactionary, but we'll have to see how that shakes out. But for the 2023 report, Disney did have a good one there. They obviously had some gains in Magic Kingdom and Epcot. Not so much on the other parks, and the Universal had some drops in theirs as well. But we'll have to wait and see how that shakes out, as these theme park wars are just starting to heat up, have an ultimate showdown for your money and attention when it comes to these parks. But that's going to be it for this video. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel, as we do lots of coverage here of Universal Studios, Epic Universe, Disney World, and pop culture. And let us know in the comments, what do you think about all this, and how much of an impact do you think Epic Universe is going to have when it opens in 2025? And until next time, we will see you in the parks.